Today, my guest is Bill Crawley, the CEO of Lithium Auto Care. In this episode, we dive deep into the origins of lithium, the thought process behind developing their products, and the innovation that sets them apart. We also discuss Drying Aid, the new exciting G series line, the famous lithium cubes, and whether a true ceramic coating is on the horizon. Hope you enjoy this one. So, Bill, what would you say is the philosophy or the MO behind Lithium Auto Elixir?
Well, Frank, we try to do it a little bit different here. And most people, when they formulate products, they say, how shiny can we make the surface? How much light can we make it reflect? How much water can it beat up? Those kind of things. What we have always done since this time we started this business is try to make paint healthy, try to make hides healthy, try to make vinyl, whatever surface we're putting our product on, we source ingredients that are actually good for that product. And, when we put a product for plastic together, for example, we'll get together and say, okay, what is the basic function and what is the ingredient list in this plastic? What goes into making plastic? How do you make it? And what starts to go away when the plastic looks bad? What is evaporating? What is being attacked by ultraviolet? What are all these things? And how do we replace it? So that's really our philosophy is making surfaces healthy. And it's always been what we've tried to do. And the look just kind of follows that, if that makes sense. If you're healthy on the inside, you're eating good, you're doing whatever, the look follows. You're going to have more vibrant skin, more vibrant hair. So we never go into it going, what makes paint shiny? It's what makes paint healthy, what gets taken away from it. And that's the foundation for everything we make.
That's very, very good. And what you would you say that is the most challenging thing about creating those type of products?
I don't know. It's broadening your line, really. You get where everybody comes to you and says, "Hey, what's the new product you're coming out with?" And we don't come out with very many new products because we don't want to do things just for the sake of doing them. If they don't bring value to the car they're being put on or the vehicle they're being put on, we just don't make it. And so, where a lot of people will end up having, you know, 75 to 125 SKUs just because they keep launching and making stuff. We just don't. Unless it does something that we're really proud of, we don't do it. So it's kind of interesting and how we started the company, and we can get into that later. But it's a fun story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was my next question, actually.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
I didn't want to jump over the fence too quick. So
But that's very good. I like the brands that don't do a product just for uh, like buzzwords or what's the trend right now, what's selling. So you want to release a product that has a purpose, that has a real needs, and that's good for the car. And I guess with your MO, you need to do a lot of R&D and find out what's really worked out there.
exactly.
So, what's the story behind lithium? When was the birth of lithium? You told me earlier that you started this company about 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, funny you should ask, Frank. I got a good story for you. So, but what I like I told when we were talking a little off camera, my whole thing was I absolutely love cars, always have. But when I was young, I couldn't afford nice cars, so I would go out and get the car I could afford, and it was never that nice. And I would spend days, hours, months with Q-tips and anything I could to make it beautiful again and make the girls like it, to do whatever I could to make it as pretty as the kid down the street whose parents bought him the car. And so lots of hours went into it. And I would try new things, go inside and get all kinds of chemicals and say, okay, what does this do to the tires? And how do I make the paint look better? And it kind of evolved over time. And as I got older, I just kept doing that. And it turns out I made friends with a guy that we've been lifelong friends, but he's a chemist, and we were fly fishing buddies. And we would go out and fly fish together and talk cars and fishing and everything. And I said to him one day, Roman, hey, why is it that when I'm using this car wax and I was working on a Porsche 924 at the time, that kind of dates me, but it was a 924 turbo. And it was just a, back in the day, it was just a cool car for me. I just loved it, you know. And I said, I put on this wax and turn around for 10 minutes and come back. And it's like taking cement off of the panel when I'm done. And I'm putting swirls in it and I'm doing all these things, trying to get this hard wax off. And he says, well, hey, dummy, you have to understand that carnauba is a very robust wax and it comes in these blocks. And so these companies are taking it and they're emulsifying it with solvents to make it soft and make it pasty and make it pliable. So he goes, when those solvents are in the wax, it's very easy to remove. It's like butter. But if you wait too long and they flash off, then it becomes very chalky and very hard to do. And he goes, and you and I both know if you pour gas on your hand or a turpentine, which was a common solvent back then to emulsify your wax, he goes, once it flashes off, it leaves your skin white and dry and kind of scratchy. And he goes, that's because it's taking the oils out of your skin as it's evaporating. And so it's doing bad things to your car when you think you're doing good things waxing it. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. So we finished our fishing trip and I drove all the way home thinking about this, got out the frying pans when I got home and started getting all this carnauba, these bags of carnauba that I had always been playing around with. They came in flaky, these bags of like flakes, looked like mashed potatoes almost. And I was pouring it in, trying to stabilize the formulas. But my idea was let's not emulsify it with solvents, let's emulsify it with different kinds of essential oils that were really. You still there, Frank?
Sorry, my bad, Bill. We're back on track.
No problem at all. So I'll just kind of pick up where I was. And so
Sure.
these bags of wax, they look like potato flakes or something. And I was mixing, and the idea is to try to emulsify with non-solvent based liquids. And so using essential, I started to think, okay, if I use skin as a metaphor and the solvents lift the oils off the skin, leaving your skin white and dry, what is it doing to the paint? And so I started thinking and looking and researching what's good for your skin. What kind of oils would you put on your skin? What really does well in that sense? And would it work as an emulsifier? So I tried everything from grapeseed oil to you know, linseed to all kinds of different things. And I really found that avocado seed oil was this amazing sort of substance. And I started emulsifying the waxes with it. But the problem is I wasn't a chemist, I was cooking it on the stove and I couldn't get the formula stable. And so it would work for 2 hours and then it would start to get globulated and stuff. So I went back to my friend and I said, hey, I'm going to send you this formula and take a look at it. And so he did. And then I got a big speech on, you know, biology, chemistry versus, chemical chemistry. And, I learned so much over the years as we fished together and worked together that, he started teaching me how to stabilize stuff and how to work it right and how to make it on my own, mainly because he didn't want to be bothered. So, it was if I teach him to fish, he won't be calling me instead of just throwing him one. But
Yeah.
it turned out really pretty cool. And we mixed up some, and he called me and says, wow, I'm going to tell you, it's pretty good stuff. And when we did it, we took all these best carnubas. This T1 carnuba was the best you could get. And we took other waxes that they use for lipsticks and stuff, and we blended those because of some of their qualities. And we really made this hybrid sort of wax. And I called it autoderm, kind of the skin and the
Yeah.
car. And it came in a squeeze tube, which was completely unheard of back then. Kind of like you would shampoo or lotion, and you would squeeze it out and put it on your car, and you could leave it on your car basically indefinitely for 5 or 6 hours if you wanted to, and it wiped off like butter. And but what it did when you took it off is it didn't dehydrate the paint; it just made it look amazing. And we just kept emailing back and forth and calling each other and going, "Did you try it on this?" And I started going to the junkyards and putting on the most oxidized cars I could find, and the results were like, "Holy smokes!" So, to make a long story short, I apologize for rambling. The
No,
dilemma
it's perfect.
the dilemma was I just gotten married. I'd started my other company, and I had to kind of pick and choose of what my future was going to hold. And didn't choose the autoderm so much because back then there was no internet distribution channels. There was nothing like that. And so you were either in Pep Boys or Canadian Tire, or you were somewhere or you were nowhere. And you had to get in one of these big boxes. And that's the way this stuff was distributed. And so that wasn't going to happen because I was charging $19 back then for a tube of wax. And that was pretty insane. So I was putting little articles or little ads in the back of Porsche Magazine, Excellence Magazine, Corvette Magazine. And the little ad was 2x2 and it said, rehydrate your paint. And people were intrigued by that tagline. And I was selling maybe 700 to 1,000 tubes, depending on what time of year it was, of this wax a year. I mean, a month, excuse me.
A
And
month. Okay.
I was like, well, this isn't bad, but it wasn't enough that I could predictably grow it. I didn't know how many ads it would take and how many ads would start to make it so I wasn't profitable anymore. I could have kept selling them, but the ads were kind of expensive. And then you had to ship it and you had to do all this stuff. $19 got cut up pretty quickly. And so you kind of went, okay, what am I going to do with this? So I kind of put it on the back burner. Why? I had a new baby on the way. I had a new, my wife was like, I needed to take care of my family. So I stuck with my other company and that worked out well. I was happy with that, but I kept formulating and making products and doing things as, my buddies would be out golfing. I'd be down in the basement with some Bunsen burner cooking up products. And my wife's like, "What are you going to do with all of it? You only have a couple of cars. You'll never, use it all." I'm like, "I don't know. I just am intrigued by the process." And so, several years ago, when I ended up selling the company that I started at the same time, I sold it. I said, "You know what? I'm not going to really care about the money aspect of it. I'm just going to do what I love to do." And I started Lithium. And as life goes, you think you're going to keep it just doing your art, so to speak. I don't care what people think. I don't care what they say. I'll find a small niche following and I'm just going to make what I love. Well, that lasts about 6 months. And then everyone starts putting in their 2 cents worth. And then pretty soon you have a team of people. And then next thing you know, you're like, damn it, it's a real business again. Son of a gun. That's not what I wanted. And you kind of go from that point. And that's sort of how the genesis of how we got from there to here. So,
Wow, that's a great story. So you're like a real passionate guy for detailing cars first.
yes, that's,
That's
that's what, and I love products. I just love to see something come to life. It's like a child for me. You watch it be born and you nurture it. You come up with the packaging and you know, the the story of how it became what it is, and you tell it to others, and you just hope that they love it like you do. And so
yeah,
that's what
the
I do.
process. Yeah, the
Yeah.
process. It seems to be working. We've been hearing about lithium for a long time here and there on YouTube from different content creators, and I've seen from I'm a Canadian. I shop at carsla.ca, and I always seen your brand out there. And then speaking of packaging, did you guys change the packaging recently?
We did.
Those are new labels, right?
Yes.
I gotta say they look pretty cool.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. New sprayers as well.
New sprayers. Sprayers are a good story as too as well, Frank. It's when COVID was here, we couldn't get any sprayers. I mean, they were so hard to get that we ended up being desperate. We had to buy like 40,000 of these sprayers from China. And that was the only place we could get them. And when we got the first ones, they worked pretty well. But when they actually sent us they kind of bait and switched us a little bit. They'd sent out some good samples, and the stuff we got did not work the same. But we were so
Mm.
grateful to get them. We're like, okay, we have these sprayers. And then when COVID was over, we look up and we still have 25,000 sprayers left. And we're like, gosh, it would seem so bad for the environment to be throwing them in a landfill or doing whatever. Are they really so bad we can't keep using them? And turns out they were. They were pretty raunchy. So we finally
Are
got to the point where we were using a better sprayer.
are you talking about those one or those are the new ones?
So these are the new ones. We're pretty pleased with these. And
Okay.
the ones we had prior to this one, though, the first ones we started out with were fantastic, made in America. We loved the quality and everything like that. Then we couldn't get them anymore, and we jumped ship to China to get a ton of them, and that's when they went bad. And then we just changed them out again to be a good quality sprayer. So sometimes you just don't have control over what happens.
Yeah, I hear brands talking about spares all the time, especially around the COVID time, like you said. And sometimes they look good, but they don't work that good, right? They leak or the spray pattern is not good.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing. It's also pricey for the business, right?
Very much so. And you have to decide what's important. And once again, that comes back to that wasn't the original idea for the company. It was to make small run batches and make them the very best they could. I never ever looked at the price of ingredients. We would just make the product and then go, oh, let's see how much that one's going to cost. And so our products are a little more expensive than you would normally see, but it's just what making good quality products cost. And we never really went out with a price in mind where, some companies will say, this is the sweet spot. We have to be between 14 and $22 and it's got to be this and it's got to be that. That's what we're going to do. We come out and say, it's got to take care of this problem. It's got to fix this issue on the car. And when it does that, that's the problem we're out to fix, not a pricing issue, if that makes sense.
So you make the products. You don't make the products to a price point. In other words, you make the products as they should be.
Yes. And
Uh,
sometimes that works fantastic. And other times people are like, that's so expensive. And you're like, sorry, it is what it is. So, we're
Yeah.
not
So
every,
speaking exactly, that's a good point. That brings me to ask you about your target customers. So you're after what I'm saying is you're after the real detailing enthusiasts and ones that really wanted to take care of his car with high quality products, right? Am I right?
that's exactly it. And, a lot of business professors will tell you, don't be your own customer. That's not it. Make a persona of your customer. But this company was made to scratch my own itch and my
Yes.
love of things. And so I was not out there toiling in the garage to come up with half baked results. It was like, if it wasn't good, I went back and tinkered again and kept going until I thought, I don't know if you can only clean a window so much, and it's as transparent as it's ever going to be, and that's when I would stop. And so that's kind of how it came together, and that's why we don't launch a lot of products. It's because we just can't get everything out there to a level that we want to put our name on. So
Yeah. Yes. Speaking of that, you guys launched the G series. Was that last year's?
yes,
You got 4 products there, I believe.
we have six actually, and
6.
yeah, and we
What's
do
the G stands for to start off?
graphene. Stands for graphene. And once again, there's a story behind that product line that it was not our intention just to jump in to do a lot of graphene stuff. I have my next door neighbor actually owns a snowmobile ATV motorcycle dealership. And he came to me and said, hey, Bill, I heard you guys make some really cool stuff. And he raced snowmobiles, is what his hobby is. And he brought me outside in this January and I'm cold. And he's like, come out and see my snowmobile. And I'm like, okay. I'm in my slippers and pajamas, out in the middle of January. He's like, see that? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? He goes, all the ice and snow caked all over this machine. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that what it's supposed to do? And he's like, no, we want to keep them light. We want to keep them clean. And so by the end of the heat, your machine weighs 20 pounds more than it did when you started because of all the ice accumulation and everything on it. So he goes, can you make me something that ice won't stick to it? And I was like, geez, Brian, I don't know if I can do that. He goes, come on. So I knew we had some formulas we had never launched. And so we went back and I started going through the recipe book and came up with this product that I called Avalanche. And he sprayed it on his machine. And 3 weeks later, he came back and brought me outside again and said, look at this, one sprayed, one not. And there was a difference that you wouldn't have believed, Frank. I was like,
Oh yeah.
no, you stopped and you wiped it off, or you went to the car wash or something to make me excited or to punk me or something. And he's like, no, seriously. And I go, and I get, and I'm, he started giving it to all his riders that he sponsored who did motocross, and they would spray their bikes with it, and it would make it so the mud wouldn't stick at all. And he goes, "You're on to something." And I really didn't want to launch the line because I was like, that just complicates the business. And
My product recommendation this week is one of my favorite tire dressing. Actually, the Clean by Pan tire dressing, a super nice tire shine, makes the tire super dark, and I was really impressed with the durability of this product. Very nice to use, so go check it out on the houseofrags.com and .ca. You can use the coupon code Dogma to save you some money. And let's get back into the video.
you got to do all kinds of things. But he started carrying it in his shop and it started selling well. And he would go out and enthusiastically show up a bottle of it to anyone who would listen, put this on your bike. Here, you just bought this from me. Take a bottle of this. And so it just started getting where we thought, okay, where does that fit into the automotive world, though? And we didn't really know. So much like Macintosh and Apple didn't really know where their computers fit into the world, they shipped them and found out, oh, graphics people love them, photographers love them, accountants hate them. And so we just started doing that with this product to see where it fit and who liked it. And seemed to have found its niche. I would have probably stopped doing it after a little bit, but they kept selling. And so we're like, okay, keep it going. And went from there.
So it should work on for us on cars there. I mean, in especially in the winter, cars here in Quebec they get so dirty, so
Yeah.
much mud, and with the ice and the salt on the road, super sludgy. It splash on your car all day long, all week long. So I guess you got a market for that. So is that a sealant?
Yeah, it's got active amino polymers in it with some SiO2 and some other ingredients with the graphene. And that graphene, when you put it on with the SiO2 onto a surface, if you look at a surface under the microscope, it's not very smooth. It looks kind of like a non-stick frying pan. And so just the way it makes the surface, ice doesn't want to stick to it. It wants to kind of, now there always are, and mud doesn't want to grab onto it either. It just kind of hits it. So it's not like you're going to keep the car clean in a salty snowstorm. It's still going to get dirty, but it won't have the amount of, in your front bumpers and stuff, when you pull in your garage and it just drips all over and it just stops that from happening. And there's always exceptions to every rule in environments. And you can have a
Sure.
bumper that's made of cast iron or something that's powder coated instead. And it may not work as well on that, but on gel coats and paint jobs, it's amazing how clean it keeps it. And so
Okay.
it's a pretty neat product. Now, it doesn't have a lot of longevity to it, though. So that's one of the downsides. Everyone thinks, well, I can spray it on once in the fall and not do it again till spring. No, you would really have to put it on every other week because the salt and the road grime is so high in alkali and so just it attacks everything. So this stuff does not bond that well. When the temperatures expand and contract, it makes it want to dissipate and fall, not adhere to the surface for very long. So, and as the snow and ice pulls, it pulls a lot of the product with it. So,
Okay. Could you use Avalanche as a like a drying aid after every wash?
Yes, you can, and
Okay.
it works pretty well that way. I spray it on panels all the time, and honestly, one of our detailers here that was full time kind of tester detailer guy, he had gone out and tested some. I have a black pickup truck, and he had sprayed some for our marketing guy to do some content, and he did half of my two of my front panels on my truck. And all last winter, I go out and walk out to my car and kind of glance over and think, "Damn, that looks real." But I didn't do it myself, so I really didn't put the two and two together. And then finally, they started laughing at me and like, "Dude, haven't you noticed?" I'm like, "Yeah, I noticed, but I just didn't think of it because I wasn't the one out doing it." But yeah, they stayed so much better than the rest of the truck. It was
Okay.
ridiculous.
That's interesting. So
Yeah,
before we continue on the G series, so you guys are in Utah, right? In Salt Lake.
correct.
So what's the weather like in winter compared to for myself in the Northeast and Eastern Canada?
Probably not as cold, but just as wet and snowy and salted roads, sanded roads. I mean, it's a pretty rough environment. It wasn't this year. It's been pretty benevolent, just been warm and more rain than snow. But usually, at my house, we'll get 3 or 4 to 5 storms a year that throw down 1.5 to 2 feet of snow. So
Okay.
it's
That's
yeah, pretty significant. But we do
so
live right at the base of a mountain too, so we get a little more than the average guy down in the valley would get. But yeah,
okay. So I guess you get some freezing temperature and then a couple days above freezing temperature. So up and down like this, right?
exactly.
Okay. So a little bit different than us, but yeah, I was speaking with another guy from the Utah recently, and I'm always interested in hearing how's the weather in your area.
Yes. But it's funny though too, Frank, because it was 69 degrees yesterday here, and that never
Wow.
happens. Yeah, and that kind of I don't know if I should be happy or scared to death. You gotta look at it and go, "Oh, that's not right." So,
It was a warmer day yesterday. We had two degrees Celsius. So I don't know how is it in Fahrenheit, but just above freezing temperature.
yeah, I was just gonna say that's right around 32, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
Yeah, that was the first day above freezing temperature since way before Christmas. So
oh boy.
that's not good for detailing outside.
No, it's not, and
Yeah.
not for the faint of heart either. I don't know if I could do that for that many months. It would be difficult.
Yes. Speaking of that, today I just washed the car inside, obviously, and I use your. So you sent me a package. I made a quick video on opening mystery boxes on my YouTube channel. So for the people at home, if you haven't seen that, go check it out. This is where I present the product that Bill sent to us. So this is the drying aid that I use after my wash. So I really enjoy that. And so I'm a little bit confused. I looked at your website. You have like a dedicated drying aid.
We do.
I'm sorry, I forgot the name. And then you have this one that seems to be in the similar branch. And then you have Avalanche. So can you elaborate on how we can differentiate each one?
You betcha. So the Ignite is the one you're speaking of that's on the website. That's our dedicated drying aid. So you have to look at percentage of solids with inside the liquid itself. And so as parts SiO2 and the solids that we put in it, the Ignite would be the lowest. So if
Sure.
it's 1.5% solids and the rest is, you know, polymers and whatnots that are more on the liquid side of it, it's more cut. Let's say that it's less concentrated. And then the next one up is the color crush. It's got about 4.5% solids in it of SiO2 and other things in there. So it's a more condensed, more stronger version. So using the Ignite as an after wash or a dryer, you would never streak at all because it's very low concentrations. It blends with the water well and wipes right off. Where the color crush, is made to stay on the surface much longer, but isn't as forgiving as a drying aid. I mean, you can do it and you'll get good results, but it's not as you could look in the light if you didn't hit it, or that stuff's made to be buffed off, so to speak. And
Yeah.
so during the drying period or process, you don't always hit it as well as you would during a panel buffing process, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And then the next one up from that would be our ceramic slam, which is almost 17% solids. And so it's very highly concentrated and be like taking it's just if you let it cure too long on the panel, you get a jackhammer out to take it off. So that's sort of the up and down sides of high solids, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. And the Avalanche is, you don't consider this one as a drying aid?
No, not really. You can use it as that because once again, the solids concentration is fairly low, and because the ingredients are so expensive, the graphene oxide and things like that, you cannot put high percentages in there because the closer you try to get, and you say more, a lot of people take the tack that more is better. Well, geez, if that much is working well, let's take it even higher. Who cares if it's $99? We don't care if it's $99. You just have a law of diminishing returns where it doesn't work as well once you get to a certain point. You get no more benefit out of it, or you start to deteriorate the experience using it. So you kind of have to balance the two, if that makes sense.
Okay. I really like how you explain things, Bill. You go in the technical side of things, but you keep it simple for us to understand. I really, really appreciate that, by the way.
Well, thank you. I mean, the only way I learn this stuff because I'm not the brightest guy in the world is metaphorically. So, it's like, okay, if I use this on here, what is that the equivalent to that I understand? And then we kind of take it from that point. That's how you become a master of a chemist.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you
But
just
for
need
us, yes. But for us, we know some of the basics, but not to a chemist level. But I like when you go more in depth, so we learn things along the way. But to get back to Color Crush, was very easy to use. It's still very easy to use, despite you mentioning that it has some more solids. And I use only one drying towel. I try to keep one side wet and the other side dry, and I had no streak to speak of. Very, 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 very slick. So if you guys are looking for for me, I use it as a drying aid. I really enjoyed it. Made the paint very slick and glossy.
well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yes. And next up, last week when I played with this on my steering wheel and leather seat actually. So this is for the people on the audio only. This is lithium hyper cleanse. So that's an all-purpose cleaner for the interior, but I've seen on your description that was made for a specific leather cleaner. Is that right?
That's correct. So
Okay.
once again, when we come back to making surfaces healthy, that's what this was designed to do. So
For
um,
leather.
for leather, I mean, most leathers come with a urethane coating on them these days, and so you really want to that urethane coating will really make your seats look terrible if you're not taking care of it. And people say, well, it's made to protect the leather. But if you've ever seen one that's gone the wrong way, it may protect the leather, but it's almost like a clear coat on a paint job going bad. It starts to flake and get a little cracky. And so we really developed that to be solvent free, not dry out that once again, we went back and said, what is this urethane coating made of? What's in a hide? What's the process of tanning hides? And when you tan a hide, what happens to it? And what dries it out? And what causes these problems? And how do you replace those while you still clean it? And so using harsh chemicals or suffocants that will dry out, once again, comes back to a metaphor. If you use soap on your body, and it's a harsh, high alkalized soap, you're going to get out of the shower and dry off, and your skin's going to feel itchy and dry because it lifts the oils with it. And so when we developed HyperCleanse, we positioned it so it did what I wanted to do, and that was to take the sheen off of the bolsters and make the leather look like it did when you took it out of the showroom. We didn't want to make it look shiny or like it had some kind of thing on it. We just wanted it to be healthy and clean. So
Yeah, and that leads me to the next question. I'm just like you. I really hate having shiny leather. I maintain my leather all the time on my BMW, and the steering wheel is probably it is the worst spot, obviously, especially in my left hand where I hold the steering all the time. But I'm always worried to use like an APC type of product or something that is too strong on a maybe on the pH level that might strip off that urethane layer. I found your product to be really effective. It brought back the matte look to the steering wheel or the leather, like I have not seen in a while. Let's put it that way. I was gonna ask you, is that I didn't see if it was dilutable or it is. Well, actually, this is a ready to use bottle, right? Ready to use product. Okay.
yes,
It 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 looked like it was pretty strong cleaner. Is it
it's
made?
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry for my hesitation. Is it made to restore really nasty leather, or can I maintain this on a already well maintained car for, let's say, for a monthly like cleanup on the leather?
Oh, definitely so. Once again, there's no solvents in it. I mean, if you drank that, it wouldn't taste very good, but you would have, drink 2 glasses of water and call me in the morning kind of thing. That's how gentle it is. But the way that we mix the supplicants together, the cleaning agents in it, it will take stains out of carpet like you wouldn't believe. It takes headliners, where you get the dark fingerprints on the visors and the headliners. It'll make it look amazing, Frank. And that's why we finally just said we got to call it more than a leather cleaner. It's just so good. You could use it all the time without any harm. And I mean, literally, we have bottles of it around my house that all my kids and my wife are so used to using on everything that it just you know, dog makes a mess on the carpet, done. This happens, done. Kid comes running in with a bloody nose, hits the carpet, up, and it just takes care of it. And I get so excited when I'm using it. I kind of walk around on the weekends looking for stains. Like, okay, I'll find you, and it's really cool that way.
Yeah, it was so good. I was almost afraid to use it again. So on the pH scale, is not that really high?
It's neutral actually.
It's
So
neutral.
yeah,
Wow. That's the
yeah.
first neutral product that cleans that well. I have another brand neutral product, and I feel like it doesn't remove the grease, the body oils, all that much. So that's very nice. I'm gonna play more with it.
Yeah.
Um, last question about hyperclans. Another thing that I always question myself when I'm maintaining my own car: do I have to wipe off is there a residue left that I have to wipe off with a wet towel? Would you recommend us to wipe off hyper cleanse with a wet towel afterwards after using it?
Depends on what you're using it on, but yes, there's going to be a residue after the fact. If you, it's just the nature of the beast because there's nothing in there that can evaporate quickly. So if you get it on, say, brushed aluminum on the interior of your car, you're going to want to wipe it. Just hit it with a wet cloth and just lift that off. Leathers and stuff, usually when you wipe it down, you'll never see or feel because they have a tendency to go into the surface and there's nothing harmful there, but you would never see a residue. But if you got it, we actually use that as a, as a panel prep before we put on ceramic. And but you do have to clean it after the fact. But most of the detailing guys that we have here that are using our products and they love it so much that they're like, it's worth any extra work that I have to do for it.
Okay. So on the leather, it's better to give it a second wipe with a wet towel just to not have residue on
Yeah, it's
between
the
the.
residue's there. You're not going to see it, but it is there. So yeah, wiping it down is recommended.
Yeah, and I've asked the same question to another brand, and That's what they told me. Every product leaves some type of residue, and it's always better to wipe it off.
That's correct.
All right, perfect. Thank you for answering this question. Next up, leather. Speaking of leather love. So I haven't used this. I've seen on the description that it is for bad and weathered leather, maybe cracked leather. My seat are like almost 4 years old now. Should I use this still?
I would still use it, and a lot of people will argue, Frank, that the newer leathers, like we talked about, they have a urethane coating. So a product like Leather Love is going to do no good, which is not true because treating that surface coating of the urethane on top is just as important as treating the leather itself. And so your leather is always going to stay nice as long as you leave the force field on top of it. And so you just want to continually test that. And we do it all the time where we'll take leathers and we'll deliberately age them and we'll put them through all kinds of things. And people say, that urethane coating, that's all you need. It's not true. You need to maintain that as well. And we used to get all kinds of people commenting like that. And we're like, okay, do you think that there's anything on this planet that doesn't need some form of maintenance or it will degrade quicker than if you did maintain it? And there isn't. If it's fabric, if it's skin, if it's metal, taking care of it is always better than not. So
Yes.
I put it on all the time. And what's funny is the viscosity of that is so high that it's not evaporating, but I have a little an Audi S5 that I kind of just mess around with all the time, and it's got a urethane coating on it. But I'll leave that stuff on the seats overnight to see what happens. When I come out in the morning, it's gone, and I'm like,
It's been
yeah, and it's like, well, that's not supposed to be porous, but somehow it's going through and going through the leather. And and a lot of we have detailers come into our place all the time just to visit or to say, hey, I was in town and I use your stuff and I wanted to see and blah, 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 meet you guys. And, we talk about those kinds of things all the time. And I don't know where it goes. We don't have a meter to say where did the liquid go, but logic would tell you it went down into into the leathers itself. It didn't go up into the atmosphere. And so, try it on your car and see, leave it on there for a few hours. But you'll come back wherever it goes. I'm not going to tend to say I know because everyone will be like, it can't go into the leather, but
yeah.
you're gonna love how supple things are when you're done. That's all.
Okay.
So
But I find out what you're saying about the product still penetrating. I found out that to be true with using the old Leatherick system.
mhm.
You ever heard of them?
No, I have not.
No, the Leatherick,
Yeah.
RIQUE. Yeah. So I'll send out the name to you afterwards. But I think that was popular. It was put on the map from I forgot the name. But anyways, Carzula carries that brand, Leatherick. It's called Leatherick, and it's a two-part process. The first process is applying an oil. It's super thick. There's grease in there. There's a ton of stuff, and then you let it sit there for overnight. And the day after, it all went through the leather. You just need to wipe off with their second step, which is some kind of detailer, right? Spray detailer, and that does not leave the leather looking greasy or anything like that. And
Yeah.
it feels supple. I use that on my old Audi S4. It's pretty good system actually, but it's quite involved and with the time, and you kind of spread it on the plastic as well. So you gotta have some time and really pay attention. Not that it's gonna damage the plastic, but still it adds time to the process. So was Leather Love made for all leather or specifically for that?
No, it was made for an Alfa Romeo that I had, and it had straight hides. It was a I'm gonna say 1987 Graduate, and it was the funnest car. I love that car to death. Being a convertible and having no coating on the leather and the top always being down, and it was just the seats got to look like an old pair of work boots. And so I just started working with lipids and vitamin E and different things and a little bit of beeswax and a little bit of this, trying to make it so I could bring that leather and kind of puff it back up and get the creases out of it. And I think on our website, you actually see that car seats in the photos, and they're kind of a football colored dark brown, and you could see the difference it made on those seats. And I don't have the car anymore because I kind of got rid of it. It was just becoming harder to move around in store than I was using it. And so, but it just did amazing things to that untreated leather. And, you know, it just, it's a great product. And once again, it wasn't because we saw that there was a key word. We were getting a lot of searches on leather restoration. It was because we had a definitive need, or I did. And that's what
Yeah.
that's what drove the product itself. And
Okay.
that's where you can stand behind the quality of it, because if it wasn't good, I would have just kept tinkering with it until I was happy. And that's where it ended up.
So it seems like every single product has his own story.
Exactly. And if there's no story, there's no product. So
Okay. Notes taken. And then I had actually a viewer that made a comment. So that was not part of my videos, but he made a comment about that he loves the product called Mudslide, and he's not the first one that tells me that. So Mudslide, it's part of the G series. I'm not aware of this product.
yeah, so Mudslide, once again, you go from, we have Avalanche being, a certain amount of solids in it. And then we moved up into the Mudslide, which was really kind of taken, saying, okay, everything else was kind of designed for the power sports industry. Mudslide, we kind of took up to the level for the guy who wants to put up for the car guy. It's graphene. It's got a very high percentage of SiO2 in it, but it is solvent based. And so we don't do solvent based products that often. But this one kind of just kept working, and people kept saying, we got to launch this. And we're like, well, we just don't know the repercussions and what's going to happen. And everyone would go, I'll show you the repercussions, and take me out in the parking lot and show me their car. Go, it's amazing. And, people kept posting about it and things like that. So once again, it was in that recipe book that I'd kind of dusted off from my friend Brian and put it all together. And that was one of the ones I just said, let's try some of this and see what it does. So,
So it's a really robust spray sealant, but because
yeah,
of okay,
well, it will cure. So it's really a graphene spray. It's a DIY graphene high SO2 spray that you'll put on there and take it from there. So,
because some other persons told me that he compared it to a 1 year coating,
yeah,
ceramic coating.
yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And a DIY 1 year ceramic coating.
Okay.
That is not technically. I had nothing to do with that formula. It was sort of passed through as, wow, you should try this one time. And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah. And ended up doing it. So,
Okay, you liked it enough.
yeah.
But so going back to that viewer, he mentioned that he was asking if he can maintain or stack Avalanche on top of Mudslide.
You can. You can't go the opposite way, but you can go that way. So, being a solvent based product, Mudslide will actually cure on on the paint itself. So once it cures, it creates a shield over it, and then you can put the Avalanche on top of it, and it's a nice topper. If you went the other way, it would be like putting cement on top of peanut butter, if that makes sense. One's not going to cure, the other one's going to try to cure on top of it, not going to make any real contact with the surface, and it's just going to make a mess. So you can do
Yes.
them, but you can't flip flop them as you see fit.
Okay. Thank you. And then the cleaning cubes. So I've seen those on Pan Organizer channel.
Yes.
Those seems really interesting. Again, this is made to restore really nasty and neglected leather. So talk to
Yeah.
me about the cleaning cubes, Bill.
Okay. So, did you get a chance to open them yet and kind of play around
No,
them? Oh,
no.
okay. Well, it's a funny story here
What?
because what once again, I have a couple of cars that have leather steering wheels, and it would drive me nuts because these steering wheels, some of these cars are 15 years old, and the steering wheel, I have, I had a 911, for example, that the steering wheel almost looked plastic because it had been worn so badly and it was so glossy and slippery that, that
So
hypercleanse,
disgusting.
yeah, I wouldn't even touch it. It would clean it, but it still looked shiny when I was done, and it drove me bonkers. So we played around with a bunch of things, and we played around with melamine, and melamine is basically magic eraser sort of sponge, and that is pretty aggressive. And it was a little too aggressive. So we're like, oh boy, that could be a big problem. So we started reaching out to the melamine manufacturers and saying, can we tone this down? Can we do this with it? Can we do X with it? And they're like, yeah, if you want to order a million pieces. I'm like, no, we don't. We want to test our theory first. And so when funny thing, I just happen to have one right here. We took this little sponge, and this gray side is much more benevolent than the white side. And so, you basically, we infused it with a cleaner that had lubricants in it. And these lubricants really was like taking a piece of sandpaper and adding water to it. You know, it just, it still did what it was supposed to do, but to a level that was so much more gentle that it was like right on the fence. And then this green section right here, Frank, is just really a urethane section that holds that liquid in inside the sponge pretty well. So you don't need water in it. You just tear it open, give it a squeeze, and do your steering wheel. And you liked what the hypercleanse did to your steering wheel. This is like 10x that. I mean, as far as holy smokes, this is amazing. And I used it on that Audi S5 I was talking about earlier, and that thing has a big, thick steering wheel. It's pretty good size, and it looked terrible. No matter how I cleaned the rest of the car, the steering wheel always dated the car and always just made it look terrible. So that's what this was designed for, was to take care of that. And everyone's like, shiny steering wheels. I've heard of niches, but that is the biggest niche I've ever heard in my life. That is crazy small. We're like, yeah, maybe so. But there's enough people out there that would probably buy it to take care of that problem because they're not going to any other way. But once again, you could use this on your car seats and bring them back to that factory look because they get oily as well and they get shiny in the bolsters. That the one thing as you open the package though is we do caution people, you know, don't go nuts with it. Use light pressure. It's designed to do what it's designed to do. And we've had the purist again, no matter what you do, if you make a water cooled Porsche or you make a non-air cool, they no matter what happens, people are like, oh, you can't do that. We did it anyway.
Yeah,
For its intended purpose. It's the best product you'll ever use. So
that's super convenient. And how many sponges do you get in one pack like this?
5 of them.
5. Okay. So that's a very good solution for the weekend detailers or the professional detailer, I guess, because
Yeah.
you would not want to use this product, I guess, to maintain your car. It's more like a restoration type of product, such as the trim restoration cubes, right? This is like a to make a makeover. Is that right?
Correct. I mean, I wouldn't go out every weekend and hit my car with this. And you just eventually you're going to wear through it. So you want to use it very sparingly. I would use this on my Audi because for some reason it's kind of a junker car, but it's a rag top and I like it and I'll leave the top down in the winter, it's just kind of fun. And so just we beat the crap out of that car here, trying out new things with it. So every 3 months, I would hit that steering wheel with this again, and just it brings it back to a matte finish like you would not believe. And if you look at the product on our website, you'll see actual pictures of my wife's SUV, for example. She has a black leather steering wheel that was shiny as ever. I made it look like it did the day we took it off the showroom floor. And I said, "Did you notice your steering wheel, honey?" "What are you talking about?" "No." She
Oh
didn't
yeah.
care. But it was such a noticeable difference. I was so excited and so proud. I'm like, "No, look at the before and after pictures." She's like, "Okay, yeah, whatever." And I'm like, "Ah." So that's sort
Yeah.
of what happens with a product like this.
Yeah, I've seen it in action on the Pantagonizer demonstration, and it turned out really good. I mean, it seems like a very good idea, a very good product. I two thumbs up to you because I think it's very unique. It's from my end, it seems like it's a first in the industry.
Well, it is, I think, and what we're hoping for is that, you know, once again, if we don't solve a problem with what we're making, it just doesn't get made. So that's sort of the long and short of this being so nichey, but at the same time, it does what it does. So
Okay, and moving on to the trims, would that be the like the big, not the big brother, but the original first cubes product that led you to the cleaning cubes?
no, actually not. I mean, we
Okay.
had we used our trim serum, and the trim serum works amazing on plastics, and it's not, it's because it's not just an oil or something that you put on there. It actually has plasticizers in it. And those plasticizers are what you lose in plastic and under duress and UV rays and so forth. And so it's a great product, but you put it on every 3 months and you're constantly reapplying it like you would lotion almost on your plastic. And it makes it look amazingly like it did when it was new out of the factory, but it didn't last that long. So we started taking what we knew of graphene and ceramics, and we started, always when we were doing graphene coatings, we would get some on the plastic trim event and inevitably go, oops, and try to hurry to wipe it off. But what I started noticing is even when I wiped it off, that that part of the plastic looked a lot better than the rest of it. And I'm like, geez, and it's gone on for years. But what the real aha moment was is we were slow to the graphene party because the graphene party itself, we weren't quite sure where it would add value, you know, and it's a buzzword, and we didn't know what it would really where is it making the product better. But when it came to plastics, the graphene oxide really bonded well with plastics and really kind of came around and just made things last forever. And so when we started blending it with a diluted version of 9H plus the graphene plus some other products in there, it was it just does incredible things to it. And I think we originally said it would last forever, and everyone said, "Nothing lasts forever, you idiot. You can't say that. You'll get sued. Nothing is like, well, it'll last for as long as you're going to own your car." And we actually had a YouTuber. He's a great guy. He called us out and said BS, and he ended up washing a bumper that he had 1,400 times. You could pull it up under Dimitri's Garage, I think
Okay.
is the channel. But
Yeah.
and he does a great job on his channel. We like him a lot, and he called BS on it. And then we said, "Well, just try it and see what you think." And he went out there and did it. And when he was done, he got to 1,465 washes and said, "Unbelievable." I, I think that's where he left it was with that. So
He got
that,
tired of washing it
yeah, well, I
with his
think
machine.
he had proven the point after that many times that, you know, wow, that's pretty amazing. So,
Yeah, I've heard good things about the trim cubes, so I can't wait to try them.
yeah,
Uh,
I'm excited for you to try them.
yeah, sure. So that'll come in spring, and I'll give you my feedback on it.
Great.
So what would be like your favorite personal? I know they're all your babies, it seems, but do you have a favorite?
I'm going to probably say it's as simple and as oversaturated the world is with detailed sprays. I love Ignite and I love Color Crush. I'm using them all the time. I'm always futzing around in the garage, trying new things with it and spraying it on stuff. But I'm just constantly hitting my own cars with it all the time, just to kind of give them a little touch up. Gives me something to do and go out and be alone in the garage for a little bit. And I don't want to get into a full detail or something because I'm only killing an hour, or I'm just going out and decompressing a little bit. So going out and using those two products, it Ignite is one of those products that everyone that works here comes in and says, "I love that product. I just reused it on my mountain bike. I love that product." And that's we do so many different things lifestyle wise here in Utah, like the mountain biking and the motorcycling, that you just are always exposed to using them. And so Color Crush happens to be my favorite product this month. A
Yeah.
couple of months ago, it might have been Inner Space for some reason. I don't know. It just depends.
Okay. So in the current moment, but yes, the drying aid, that's one category that I enjoy. One of them I enjoy the most because it's something you use all the time, like maybe the soap, right?
Yep.
What's one detailing myth that you constantly see? And was there a product or an idea that didn't work out the way you expected?
I don't know. There's so many myths out there that we try to look at and see if they make sense. But I think one of them is, you know, that you can't use a leather conditioner on new seats because they're coated, which is totally a myth. And that, you know, doing certain things to your tires when you clean them is going to, you know, make them crack or whatever. And there's we hear them all the time. So I apologize. I'm not more specific on pulling that particular myth. I could go back and look at some of the things we've done, but it's there's a lot of them out there, and
That
so
Yeah, that's two very good one. I'd say the
yeah.
tire cracking, unless your car never drives and it sits outside for more than 10 years. You rarely, I rarely seen a tire crack other than a 10 years old tire, right?
Well, here's the other fun thing we always used to hear is, "Oh, I use this tire dressing and it turns my tires brown. I hate it." It's not the dressing that's turning it brown. It's the anti-ozone that's coming out of the tires that's put in there when you make the tires, and they're designed to stop the sidewalls from cracking. This ozone comes out, and when it hits the UV rays, it turns the tire brown. It has nothing to do with what you're cleaning it with. And people will say, "Oh, I used this cheap brand from Walmart and it turned my tires brown. I hate it." And it had really nothing to do with it. And so, we hear kind of things like that all the time. And
It easy to blame the product.
yes. And as
There's
far as
always some. What's
I
that?
was just I was just going to say the second part of your question of products that didn't work, 95% of everything we try doesn't work, or isn't right. And yeah, like I said, I'm not a chemist, and I can just mix stuff up enough to proof concept. We have a very talented chemist who's in Corona, and he will make it right, or we'll email back and forth ideas and concepts, and you know he knows how to take things that they have a shelf life to them, that they, you know, like our double tap soap, for example. We had the idea of, let's take eucalyptus oil and use that as the suffocant. Let's use that as the cleaner. It's got some properties to it that are amazing. And as you use them, it will basically lubricate the paint while you're washing it. And he made it work. And I tried a million ways to do it and couldn't make it happen. And so just knowing what you're doing, there's like you could write a song right now. If your wife said, "Write me a song, Frank," you could do it, but you couldn't write a hit song. That 10% difference makes all the difference in the world. And
Exactly.
that's the difference between a hack like me and someone who really is good at their profession. And so we always have to incorporate that just to make it right. And so that's sort of where we do it. But most of the stuff that we come up with conceptually, it doesn't fly. So it's like, can we do X if we did Y? It's like, yeah, we wish we could, but it didn't. So
It's part of the business.
it really is. And if you don't like the process, you don't last very long because it's arduous and it's painful sometimes. It's like, ah, we put so much time in this and still didn't go anywhere. So
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You throw away a lot of work in the trash
yes,
sometimes.
yes. We recently moved to a new building, and you don't even know how much stuff you throw away in the trash that you keep around thinking, well, maybe I'll come back to that. And it just doesn't. Just doesn't work. And I mean, just literally dumpsters full of the stuff. And we're like, what a waste. But I guess that once again is part of the process. So
Did you outgrow the other ones? The building?
yes and no. I mean, it just wasn't. Utah has a very big shortage of industrial type buildings and things like that. And they get very, very expensive. And they get very, very, and we had gone different directions. We'd done different things with, since COVID and how we were developing products and stuff. And that building was so overkill to what we originally envisioned that when the lease came up, we were like, yeah, I don't know. Do you need to have a golf cart to get one side to the other or whatever? That's definitely an embellishment by a long shot. But it was just too much for what we were doing. So
Okay,
yeah.
got it. So, Bill, what are your plans for 2025?
You know, that's a good question because once again, how do you keep the market excited about your brand? How do you keep them coming back without launching products for the sake of launching? That's the big dilemma that we have. I mean, we literally have been working on a 9H ceramic with graphene in it and without graphene in it, and 100 different ways to try to make a better coating. And that is it's an incremental process. You just don't come out with a coating that is night and day better and over. So we had to choose our problem. And what we did is we started noticing something as we were buying up all the ceramic coatings out there to see what we were up against, what we were doing, what they were doing, what we would do. And we have videos of this. It's kind of funny. We would take these Starbucks cups. I drink one every day. So we take these cups like this. And I wish I had one here, Frank, but I don't know where half the crap is that we have because it's still in boxes and crates and whatnot. And I would take these 9H formulas and I would pour them into these cups and use them by just dipping the applicator into certain things because it was faster for what I was trying to see how quickly they went on. What happened if I overused the product? What if I underused it? And went out to the studio about a week later and I noticed something. And that was after all the solvents had dried out, and there was probably that much in each cup that I last, you could see what those polymers look like on their own because they all look like water when you were doing them and using them. And some were smellier than others, some were easier to take off. But what we found was some of the Chinese ones, they dried pure white and you would squish the cup and they would crumble into chalk. And I'm like, what the heck? And the ones we pulled out that we were making, you would look through it and it was like looking through a solid piece of glass, but the glass had impurities in it and it kind of had a yellow tint to it. And everyone's like, so we actually taking away and degrading the finish of this? So we went back to the drawing board and started saying, okay, what would cause this? How does this work? Why is this like this? And so, what our niche was that we were shooting for was really optical purity, just clarity. So now you can pull out, when we do it after every batch, you can pull out a plug, we call them, hit this, the plug comes out, slides out perfectly nice because it's so slippery. And I could look through it and it would be like looking through a pair of glasses at you.
Wow.
And it's so optically clear. And there are very, 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 very few formulas that actually do that. And it once again wasn't because that's what we set out to do. It was, how do we make something better? If we can't, do we really want to do it? And it came about by serendipity, by just happenstance of noticing what was going on around us. And there's very few products, actually, Frank, that have enough solids in them once you let them sit there that you can even get out because they just crumble in your hands. And
Sure.
I'll take a picture. I'll go try to go find that plug, tomorrow or something, and see if I can say, hey, where's all our core samples that we did, and just send it to you for your own curiosity, because it's pretty amazing. And so we started focusing on, what does this look like once it's cured on your car? And that's where we're going with it. So we have it, we call it hard candy. We haven't launched it yet. We've had the packaging, we had everything in place for months atop of months, but we kept playing around with the formula and doing this, and then we weren't quite ready. Then the season wasn't, it just kind of sat there. And actually, our um, distributor in Australia, who's a dear friend of mine too, we've become friends over the years. He's like, "Would you stop it? Just send me some." And so he's launching it before we are. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Just see what happens, because he's been kind of pushing it. He's a great marketer, and he's kind of showed little snippets to people, and they're like, we want some, we want some. So he's like, I'm losing momentum. Just let me launch. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. But that's the other thing, that we just don't launch things until we're super happy with it. So
That's a great story.
sorry if I rambled on too long.
No, that's perfect. That's why we're here. So, if people want to look into your products, where can they find them? I know that you guys are on Amazon, right?
Well, we sell on Amazon, but that's not, that's just because you have to be there, sort of thing. But we sell them to professional detailers around the country. We sell them to great places like Carzilla, things like that. We sell them to secondary, not a lot of secondary resellers, but we do have brick and mortar stores around that carry them as well. Or you can get them off of our website. So,
Directly.
yeah, directly from
Good.
us.
And if people want to know more, where can they reach you, Bill, before we leave?
They could reach me at info@lithium and lithiumautocare.com. And I read every one of them that come across, and you can reach me through that.
Good, good, good. So I'll leave your links down below. Anything we forgot, Bill, before we leave?
No, not at all. It's been fun, and I just appreciate you having me. Always watch the channel, always love it, and that's why I reached out to you and said, "Boy, we want to get you some product." And so you just do a great job, and we enjoy it.
Well, thank you so much, Bill. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the products. I'll definitely look more into it. And thanks for your time.
No,
And
thank you.
thanks for being honest. I really enjoy our conversation. And I'll see you soon, my friend.
All right, talk to you later. We'll see you, Frank.